I really like what you pointed to around this mind body spirit connection and the ways in which that, these layers of healing. And I think in the Western culture, I think there is a lot of absence of the spiritual connection. And there's a lot of, I think the word that comes to mind is just disconnection, that really leads to a lot of these, more mental, emotional manifestations, and then also physical manifestations as well. I think it's all interconnected. I think a lot of what, from what I've observed on my own path, and then also people that I work with, is, you can just think about, because I dive a lot into like more developmental, I've learned a lot about more developmental, trauma or, dysregulation, and, Gabor's whole theory on attachment versus authenticity, and how that impacts someone's mental emotional space and connection with themselves. And, I think it's all really connected, but I think it starts at the root of, even just the conditions when you're inside of your mother. What is that like? Is it a very stressful environment in terms of, is the mother very, anxious and on alert, and, are there, stress hormones that are pumping through her body that are, going into the fetus, and that the fetus is experiencing? Again, there's a lot of different schools of thoughts around that, but it's like, okay, well, how is this fetus's nervous system developing? And, and I say this to not put blame on mothers. I think mothers and parents get a lot of, blame, essentially. And it's like, I really am careful with my language around that, because I don't want to shame anyone. But, there's the reality of like what's happening in terms of the physiology. And, I think most people are just trying to do the best that they can with what they know. And I think that that's something that I'm super passionate about, is educating more and more people too, to learn these concepts of, the nervous system, what's happening on a physiological level with the hormones in the body. And then also these more subtle, concepts of, how you attune to your children. And, how, when children are not fully able to be in their authentic expression of themselves, what happens in terms of, this disconnect? If there isn't this attachment there, and this attunement, and this, allowing the child to be in their full expression, the child brain, the child starts to believe, okay, well, it's actually not okay for me to be in this, part of myself. It's not okay for me to, an example would be, if a child is, expressing their anger, and the parent is like, stop being angry, and like shuts them down, or maybe like ignores them, and, kind of punishes them in a way, then the child's brain starts to, believe, and this is all on a subconscious level. It's like, okay, there's something, like, I'm not getting love and attention when I'm doing this, so I need to not do that. And then child shuts down that part of themselves, and learns how to please the parents, learns how to get love and attention. And so there's a sacrifice, sacrifice of authenticity, in order to get these attachment needs met, of like, love and acceptance. And, within that, though, there's a disconnect from authentic self, a disconnect from self. And, I think that, over time, if that's happening a lot, it can really create, I know in my own experience, I was just very, like, I don't know, like, who I am. Like, I feel like I got so disconnected from myself, from my center, because I was just really trying to please everyone around me. And, I see this a lot with people that I work with. And I think that leads to a lot of, depression and anxiety. I think that it creates this, when we're disconnected from ourselves, it's really hard for us to be present with people in our life. It's really hard to be present in our lives, essentially, and engaged. It's hard to make decisions from a disconnected place, because you're making decisions based off of, okay, I need this person to approve of this, so I'm going to make this decision. And then you're living out of alignment, this term alignment of like, Okay. And then that, I think, creates a lot of, disruption for people when they're really living out of alignment of what's true for them. And, I think that that creates a lot of, dissatisfaction. I see that a lot with people. Like, I feel like I have no meaning. I feel like I have no purpose. I hate my job. It goes on and on and on. And I think oftentimes at the root is there's this, deep disconnection from what they actually like, what they actually love. And some people don't even know what that is, and so I think part of the healing is this, like I said earlier, like this coming home to yourself, coming home to your center, your spirit, your soul, whatever you want to call it, the essence of who you are. And I think that that essence of who we are gets really lost. And I think that, for some people can stay connected to it, but I haven't met that many. And I think in our Western society, we're in a very disconnected culture. We're in a society right now, like, where it promotes disconnection. It promotes like numbing your feelings, numbing out, it promotes like, change who you are, look this way, it's like, I really think we're in a very sick society. And I think it's really creating a lot of suffering for a lot of people, a lot of anxiety and a lot of depression. And then that has such an impact on the physiology. And I really love, Gabor's work on, when the body says no, and the cost of hidden stress. And I actually believe like the root of most people's physical ailments is stress. And, I can take that deeper. It's not necessarily just stress. I think it's important to look at what's happening in the physiology in terms of the ways in which so many people are stuck in this like fight or flight mode, where their sympathetic nervous system is just in overdrive, and the chemical cocktails that get released when we're in that space, wreaks havoc in the body. I often say to my patients, it causes a shitstorm in the body, and it affects, your other hormone cycles. It affects your immune system. It affects your ability to, regulate your nervous system and to think clearly, because it messes with the prefrontal cortex, and your amygdala is very stimulated in your fear response, and it's like survival mode basically. And I don't actually think our bodies were designed, to put up with what we put it through in our day-to-day society right now, especially right now with the pandemic and all the fear and I think it's really making people really sick, not just the virus. I think it's, the stress. And I just see it, because I work mainly, in the realm of, mental health, and, and so I'm supporting people, and, a lot of people are really struggling right now. And, I think a lot of it has to do with like this kind of, original disconnection, and then also, the impact of chronic stress on the body.